inspirational moment from Pastor Marvin L. Winans of Perfecting Church.
Galatians 2:11 says, "But when Peter came to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, for he was to blame." How do you handle conflict? In today's society, confrontation is not encouraged. Therefore, things are rarely resolved. Where if you are confronted at the inception of a problem, it never festers into the situations we see throughout our communities. The Apostle Paul confronted the Apostle Peter and said, "You are the blame." What nerve and conviction it took for him to do that. The lesson: if you know you're right, in love, confront. That's how we handle conflict.
You've just heard an inspirational moment from Pastor Marvin L. Winans of Perfecting Church on The Mildred Gaddis Show.
I still believe in marriages made in heaven, and that love will conquer all. I've been hurt, but not deceived. Regardless to what has happened, I still believe. Still believe.
Mildred Gaddis Show is now live on 105.9 KISS.
Good Sunday morning, Detroit. Welcome to the Mildred Gaddis Show. What a beautiful, beautiful day. And it's going to be a scorcher, too. Today's forecast is calling for some afternoon showers or thunderstorms, possibly. Today's high, 93 degrees, and the humidity comes right along with it. I am wrong. It's 95, not 93 degrees. Tonight's low, 77. Clouds and scattered thunderstorms on Monday. And we can get possibly some heavy rainfall with a high of 87. Scattered thunderstorms Monday evening. Oh, the grass is going to be green and beautiful with all of this beautiful rain falling here in the Motor City. Coming up on the Mildred Gaddis Show, we're going to check in with Gleaners Community Food Bank to talk about some hunger-free summer camps in our area. Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett is setting the record straight on election myths and realities. We're happy to have her join us this morning. And yes, I know a lot of you can't wait. Blacks missing in action in the new U.S. Congress. That is from Michigan. We're going to talk about the 13th Congressional District race and all the controversy that has come along with it. And hopefully we'll have enough time left this morning in the show to talk about Mr. Bill Russell, a giant of a man. You know, there's a song, they don't make him like they used to. They certainly don't. What's so exciting about his life is not necessarily his gifts on the court, but who he was as a man. He passed away last Sunday. But first, we're going to check in with Christian Sokol, who is the Director of Advancement Strategy and Planning over at Gleaners Community Food Bank. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's talk about this summer camp.
Yeah. I mean, summer has always been a difficult time for families and for children who are facing hunger because school is out of session, and so that means that many kids are at risk of missing out on meals. And, you know, with this year, inflated gas, groceries, and those gas prices, they put additional strain on families. So Gleaners is operating more than 60 sites for children in our community. They include meal sites and mobile sites. And at those sites, the mobile sites, children get lunch 5 days a week delivered by a refrigerated truck at pre-scheduled times. And then at our stationary sites, those are places where kids already are, like summer camps or daycares, and we provide nutritionally balanced, prepared breakfasts and lunches to them there.
Approximately how many children are we speaking of?
Well, there are more than 305,000 children who rely on school meals. So at the very least, we know that we have that many children who are at risk of hunger over the summer.
Now, if they're not already in a camp, how can the parents or people who care in the community access the food for those children?
Beyond our summer food service program, we have a network of more than 600 community partners that includes schools, soup kitchens, food pantries, essentially your traditional agencies where through these collaborative partners, families could seek food and support. And then in addition to that, Gleaners operates community mobiles. Those are emergency food distributions that are strategically located throughout our entire 5-county service area. Does not require an appointment, and it's a no-contact drive-through model. Families can get fresh milk, vegetables, fruit, whole grains, lean protein. And then the other thing that we operate all the time, school food mobiles. Those are in partnership with schools and Head Starts, and we have more than 60 sites, and those sites also provide families with approximately 30 pounds of food, and that's, again, fresh milk, vegetables, fruit, whole grains, lean protein, all of those things you need to supplement a healthy diet.
Now, this service and these products are going to be provided through August 31st?
Well, our Hunger Free Summer campaign is through August 31st, and the great thing about this campaign is that listeners, community supporters, they can provide donations to make sure that we can get that food out into the community, and $1 will equal 6 meals because of a match from citizens and other generous donors. So what that means is if your listeners donated just $10, they would provide a child breakfast and lunch for an entire month.
How do parents, how do our listeners hook up with you to donate that money?
They can log on and go to hungerfreesummer.org. There's a donate button there. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, for any of your listeners who may need support, go to gcfb.org. We have our distributions listed there. If you're not interested in going on the internet, the other easy way to do that is to call 211, and you'll be connected with your closest food distribution, including all of the Gleaners sites that we operate.
Now, this is for the summer program. What happens after summer?
In summer, the summer food service program discontinues at the end of the summer, but we still operate our traditional partner network, our community mobiles, our school food mobiles. So all of those are year-round to make sure that families have the additional food and nutrition that they need for at home.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners this morning?
I would. Thank you so much. So first, I want to express Gleaners' gratitude to anyone who has offered their time and donations and talents, because it is the supporters that are the heroes who enable us to do what we do in crises large and small. So our gratitude for that. But the other thing that I wanted to share is we know that just too often households wait too long to come and see us, and they wait until need turns dire or the stress and strain on their lives is overwhelming. And so I encourage anyone who is facing a cupboard that is not full, there's no need to wait. We're here to help take that worry of hunger off the table. And so if you need support, please call 211 or visit gcfb.org. We want to make sure you're taken care of.
All right. I want to thank you so very much, Christian Sokol, for coming on and sharing that. And remember this, folks, $1 provides 6 meals for a child. That's outstanding. Thanks for sharing with us this morning on the Mildred Gaddis Show. It's so good to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. 313-568-1059 is our number here on the Mildred Gaddis Show. Already this morning, let's say good morning to some of our Facebook Live family members. Walter Haley, Ernest Robinson. Lynn Thompson says, good morning. The inspirational moment was phenomenal. Thank God for this day. Amen, she says. Betty Harris Eberhardt, good to have you. Aurelia Alexander, good morning to you. Zelphia Amelia Banks, it's good to have you. Reverend Cornelius Alexander Rice, good Sunday to you as well. Andrew Mack, we're happy to have you. Lynn Thompson, Joe Fuller, good morning to you. Lori Parks, hi Mrs. Parks, how are you this morning? Barbara Ford, Michelle Hayden, we're happy to have all of you join us here on the Mildred Gaddis Show, including Frenzella Gregory, Derek Fields, Elise Johnson, Janet Overall, yes ma'am. Chester Williams, good morning to you. I don't know what some of that stuff is you're saying, Chester, but it's good to have you anyway. 313-568-1059 is our number. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett. She's setting the record straight. You know, I'm always reminded of this line, and I really should know who said this in The Color Purple. And I think it was Sophia, the character Oprah Winfrey played, when she talked about I done had to fight all my life. Sometimes you just get tired. But, you know, people just keep coming after you and coming after you. And, you know, it's just overwhelming at times. And repetition, and I tell you guys this all the time, can be a convincing argument. Even the lies that are repetitive. You know, you can tell these lies over and over and over again, and people will believe them. They become reality for a lot of people. Well, Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett isn't having it. So she's talking with us this morning to set the record straight about some misinformation, misinformation that emerged over election night in several of the newscasts around town. You just get tired. She probably doesn't get tired, but I just get tired of the foolishness. And sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. But nevertheless, it can be quite damaging. So we're going to talk with her about that. And after that, I know you all are, a lot of you all are real anxious, very anxious, to talk about the results of this 13th congressional race. And we are going there. Yes, we are. Later this morning here on the Mildred Gaddis Show. So stay tuned.
New smash hit Broadway musical, Ain't Too Proud, is electrifying. It follows the Temptations' extraordinary journey from the streets of Detroit to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. With their signature dance moves and silky smooth harmonies, they rose to the top of the charts. Nominated for 12 Tony Awards, this unforgettable story is set to the beat of the group's treasured hits, including My Girl, Just My Imagination, Get Ready, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and so many more. Log on to KissFMDetroit.com and take the Temptations Top 10 Challenge. We listed 10 Temptation songs. Place them in order from your most favorite to least favorite. If your list matches Mason and Star's exactly, you can win tickets to see Ain't Too Proud, the life and times of the Temptations, when it comes home to the Detroit Opera House, August 9th through 28th. Part of the Kiss FM Summer of Soul concert series.
I know you want
You walked right into my life when all I had was emptiness. Just one day of you being around, you filled me with such happiness. Ooh, you lift me up off the ground, yeah, my temperature's rising without me realizing. Ooh, I love the way you make me feel, so magical and yet so real. I love the way you make me feel so good. I never thought I could, yeah. Bless the day that you came around, 'cause with you came a sudden change. Without you, I'd been nowhere. I tell you, darling, life is strange. No one else can ever compare or ever try to take your place. Someone pinch me, keep me awake, 'cause the way that I'm feeling, I think I must be dreaming. Ooh, I love the way you make me feel, so magical and yet so real. And I love the way you make me feel so good. I never thought I could, yeah. Ooh, I love the way you make me feel, you. What can I say? There's nothing new, just another day. Still there's a feeling something might appear. Yes, it's here. I found love, and it's not too late. I found love that was worth the wait. Darling, it's true, 'cause I found love with you. Just think that only yesterday, chance for love seemed far away. All that's changed, it's all because of you. You make it so much better. I feel so sure I tell you this. I found love in our first kiss. This is the way I knew that it would be. Can't you see? I found it just in time. I found love, now it's mine, oh mine. Darling, it's true.
Welcome back to the Mildred Gaddis Show. Currently in the city of Detroit, we've got 818 and 79 degrees. 313-568-1059. You know, there's a lot that we lay folk who are not in the institution of elections don't know. A lot of things we think we know, we don't know. And there's so much to learn. But joining us right now is and I got to say this, I have to say this, is one of the most respected elected officials in Wayne County, who happens to be Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett. Good morning, Madam Clerk. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, Mildred? And to your listening audience, good morning.
Good morning. You know, there's so much about this process that we don't understand. A lot of us check in when it's election time, and then we check out afterwards and just don't have a clue about the process. In addition to that, some of the many services that the county clerk's office offers. But first of all, why was it important to you to come on this morning to talk about this?
It was important. First of all, let me say thank you for that kind compliment. But it was important for me to come on because I knew on your show it would be unedited, unfiltered, and I just felt it was important to come and talk about some of the disparaging things that were said about Wayne County. And I feel and I could be wrong, but when it comes to elections, when individuals say Wayne County, that means the Wayne County Clerk's office. So just to be as brief as I can, and I'm a news nerd, so I'm at work on election night all the time, but I happen to be looking at one of the local channels, which was WDIV, and we had earlier sent out a public advisory to the media outlets letting them know why the results would be coming in a little slower. Well, the anchor, Mr. Skellion, repeated our public advisory, and it just appeared that he was saying it with some skepticism. Then his anchor also responded with skepticism, I felt. Well, then he says that we'll have to reach out to the state to get further information. Then at 12:09 in print media by WDIV, it stated that the Secretary of State, and I'm paraphrasing this, the Secretary of State had to confirm why Wayne County and other counties were slower with their results. Well, I took insult to that because it was the same information that was shared from my office, other than the Secretary of State was more wordy, but the facts were the facts. So then we have the TV on during the entire time. Again, during the 6 to 7 o'clock hour, the other news person, I think his name is Grant Humes or something, he's distorting the whole process of what happened in Wayne County as well as 64 other counties. But Mildred, between that 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock hour, Channel 4 has this new election poster, I guess, and his name is Richard Zuba. Rhonda Walker is interviewing him, and they go over the overall election, and then she says, well, Wayne County is having problems. What do you think of that? Without a pause, it rolls off this man's tongue and out his mouth that is just incompetent. Then he goes on to say, have empathy for the clerks, that legislation has to be changed so the clerks can count the AVs earlier. So my confusion and anger came when, where is the incompetence? If you have empathy for the clerks and understand that process, how was it so easy for him to say it's just incompetence with Wayne County? So I felt, okay, is it just me? I began to receive text messages. I got a few phone calls. I just felt that throughout that whole process with that news outlet, it was some undertones that needed to be dealt with. And that's why I knew this was the outlet to come to first of all stress my displeasure with how they responded to the Wayne County Clerk's office, and just to let them know that I'm totally awake to the undertones.
Madam Clerk, did someone from WDIV reach out to you to ask about what was the process and what was going on?
Not at all. As I stated, he said they would reach out to the state to get further information. So I guess once the Secretary of State informed them of what we already had, it was validated. It was okay. It was acceptable.
What?
I called the newsroom myself to complain. I gave the main number to the elections office. I never received a call back.
Well, it seems that there is still a need to have the discussion, to explain, what happens here. Help me understand something that I don't understand. I think the next day I was reading something in the paper about modems. What's the issue with, what is a modem? What does it do, and why is it important?
The modem in this case, in the polling locations, there was modems that were, it afforded the capability of the election results to be modemed instantaneously once the system is shut down and all of the checks and balances. That modem would afford the election results to be instantaneously modemed to those local clerk's offices as well as the county clerk's office, whereas the results would post faster. That's just a layman's short version of it. However, what happened with the modems, for 65 out of the 83 counties throughout the state of Michigan, we all use the same voting equipment, the same vendor, Dominion election systems. Well, those modems are powered at the 3G level. Well, now standards are 5G. However, the reason that we chose not to use the modems was because of the recommendations that came from the various experts, so to speak, about election security. The Michigan Security Advisory Commission was one, and the decision to discontinue the modems was made, again, for the 65 out of the 83 counties in Michigan, based on the changes instituted by the state of Michigan in response to election security recommendations from the U.S., I think it's the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. And this came about after the 2020 election. So what we were doing was the appropriate thing by not using the modems, and it was a recommendation. And the fact that the state no longer will certify upgrading modems because the modems are going away for the entire state based on security reasons.
Wow. So there were other counties that chose not to use the modem. Is that not correct?
Correct.
I read that. Yeah. So why was that an issue for Wayne County? I mean, why should it Why should it be an issue for Wayne County when you have other counties in the state as well who chose not to use them?
Now, I have my own thoughts about it, but that's the question that I had. And there were 64 other counties that did not use the modems. They're not as large as we are, so maybe their results came in somewhat quicker. And then even with those 65 counties, it's my understanding that even though Macomb has a different voting system, they did not use their modems, again, for the same reason, based on these recommendations for these election security commissions. So I feel that what Wayne County and those other counties did was the appropriate thing to do, because our first concern is a secure election.
Makes you wonder.
Well, it made me wonder, and it's good it was some days in between before I could get on your show, because I have been living. Because, as I said, I do believe that there are some definite undertones as to why Wayne County is the poster child all the time. And then the other thing, don't look at Wayne County as only being the Wayne County Clerk's Office. There are 43 local clerks throughout the county of Wayne. And so when you say Wayne County, include all of us, because we're all in this together when it comes to election.
This is quite interesting. Quite interesting.
The media took off with it. It was great interest. I mean, in the newspapers calling and the different channels making something out of nothing. It was a good reason that we didn't use them.
Well, when I read the article, what just kept coming back to me was that you had all of these clerks choosing not to use the modem. So why is Wayne County being lifted up as somehow breaking the rules or being incompetent?
Yeah. If you could get that question answered for me, maybe I could let it settle in my spirit a little better. But that's exactly why I'm on here, because that is the question. And I felt like you're from Mississippi. I'm sure you heard we need to nip it in the bud before it blossoms. And that's why I can't be quiet about this. How dare you make a difference in Wayne County than any other county? My question would be, what counties did use the modems, and going against what was recommended by this security commission? If they did use them, why?
That's a legitimate question.
Let's highlight them. Let's lift them up.
So to this date, has anyone, and I think I asked this already, from WDIV reached out to you? Because certainly, a little learning can be a dangerous thing. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
Well, no, they haven't. But trust me, I will be offering for any media outlet, print or on TV, to come in well prior to the November election to understand how the process goes, to understand the difference in what the county clerk is responsible for and the local clerk, and how we work together. I think that maybe if they truly came to listen and understood, they could be more accurate and responsible in their reporting. So I will be offering that prior to the November election.
And perhaps the political scientist who is the commentator on election night at WDIV, you might want to invite him over as well.
Oh, absolutely. I still would like to contact him to find out where was the incompetence. So definitely, I have some letters that are on their way for sure.
What is that saying? Just because you think they're after you doesn't mean you're paranoid.
Absolutely.
You know,
That stays in the forefront of my mind.
this is incredible because here's what some people don't understand, and I share this quite often, and that is people when people watch people on television, when they listen to people on radio, they assume they know what they're talking about. They assume that they're telling the truth. And it does not necessarily mean that someone's being dishonorable. Sometimes it's out of pure ignorance. But it's a very dangerous thing when you're sharing information that is factually incorrect, because people assume because you're on television, you wouldn't be there if you weren't an expert. If you weren't competent, if you didn't know what you were talking about. And this is one of those instances where the wrong information got out, false information, you know.
And if I can just share this with you, there's no comparison on so many levels, but since we're talking about elections, with Wayne County and any other county. In Oakland County, they have 511 precincts. In Macomb County, they have 343 precincts. In Washtenaw County, they have 151 precincts. In Kent County, they have 250 precincts. In Wayne County, we have 918 precincts. So it's no comparison. It's no comparison. You take Oakland and Macomb together, and Wayne County still has more. So that says there's more work to be done. So you can't expect us to be done at the same time these other counties are finished with their election process.
We've got Ruby on the line wanting to talk with you, Madam Clerk. Ruby, you're on the air. Her call dropped? Yeah. Okay. All right. You know, you mentioned something, and I think that it's certainly a great thing, and that is bringing folk in prior to the election so that they can see and get some sense of how the process works. That's extremely valuable.
That's the plan.
What is the greatest challenge for a county clerk's office during this process?
I don't think, I would say, especially with this election, there were no challenges other than we weren't expedient as normal because the modems were taken away. But there are no challenges. After a point, it's like riding a bike. So we haven't had any challenges of recent, and we definitely didn't have one August the 2nd.
Ruby is back with us. Ruby, you're on the air. What's your question or comment, please?
Good morning, Mildred. I want to comment about the election. You know, I worked the election on election day, and at the precinct I was at, there was a challenger there, right? She was from the Republican Party. Now she was harassing the workers. So that's what it seemed like to me. But she was going by the rules. Now one voter was ready to jump on her, and it was a man. Another lady, she asked her why she didn't have her identification, you know, because you could flip the application to vote over to say you are who you are, and you affirm and swear to it. So the young lady came over and said, well, why she asked my name? Are you trying to keep me from voting? You know, so it was kind of hectic where I was with that lady there. So we're supposed to wear a mask, okay? She didn't have on a mask. So as a supervisor, I walked over to her, and I asked her, I pointed to my mask. I said, where's your mask? She said, I don't have one. Can I use one of yours? And I said, yes, but next time she better have her own, because I'm not supplying her with no mask when that's the rules in the precincts.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. Madam Clerk, what's the process with the challengers?
What do you mean as far as the process? There's you speaking of what Ruby said?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's guidelines for that as far as space that they have to be in, the fact of not hovering over people. There's limits to, and this is lengthy, is limits to what they could do. But what I would say to Ruby, that's what the county stands ready for on election day. anytime there's any type of problem, and definitely the local clerks, when it rises to the occasion of feeling harassed, those sort of things should be called into the local clerk or to the county if the supervisor there in the polling location can't resolve it.
Great. What do you want to leave with our listeners that we have not covered this morning?
All that I would like to leave your listeners with is, number one, know that I will be offering informational session for the media outlet. Other than that, Mildred, your listeners can expect us to continue to strive for excellence by doing what we always do. We always put accuracy over expediency, and just know that we are not in any competition with any other county because we are the largest, and it seems that we are the ones that stay focused on security of the elections.
All right, Madam Clerk, Kathy Garrett.
I thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you for sharing. You know, it's so important for us to have the truth and the right information. When you have the right information, you can do the responsible thing.
I see it for what it is.
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right.
I thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. I'm reading some of our comments here on Facebook. First of all, I want to say good morning to Dolores Robbins, who is visiting us from the state of Alabama. And thanks for listening to the show while you're in Detroit. Nicole says that 3G is beyond outdated in technology time. Sounds like the so-called experts are outdated as well. Coming up next on the Mildred Gaddis Show, where are we going? Oh, we're going to talk about this controversial 13th congressional district race. Put your seat belts on. And the streets are talking about, the streets have not stopped talking about this race. And we're going to do it this morning right here on the Mildred Gaddis Show.
What is a summer of soul? Kiss FM wants to help make this your best summer ever. All summer long, we're getting you into all the hottest shows like Alicia Keys.
What's up, y'all?
Mary J. Blige with LMA.
Chris Brown.
Wu-Tang Clan. Ken. Lizzo. And more.
Are you guys ready to party?
We're helping you laugh it up with tickets to the All-Star Comedy Fest. Chris Rock and Cat Williams. Plus weekly laughs at Bert's with Mike Bonner. And that's not all. We've got your tickets for Ain't Too Proud, A Temptation Story, the Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival, and much more. Go to KissFMDetroit.com to see the complete Summer of Soul calendar of events. The Kiss FM Summer of Soul. Powered by Bet Rivers Online Casino and Sportsbook. Play with the winner at Bet Rivers.
AARP has an exciting...
all there is to see. Come meet Detroit and be all there is to be. It's where it all started. A star still shine in the sky. Motown is your town.
Come sit by our shore and hear our engines roar. One taste of Detroit, and you'll be back for more.
The Pistons are scoring.
Lions and tigers are roaring.
We're spreading our red wings. See how we're soaring. Never before. Better than ever before. Better than ever before. Come place your bet on a winner. Better than ever before. Better than ever before. Better than ever before. Better than ever before. Connecting it all with the world waterways. Now that we have arrived at our golden days. There's so many great things, so just come on down. It's all happening in this town. Better than ever before. 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 Better than ever before now. Better than ever before. Better than ever before. Weather the storm now, it's time to shine. We're growing together, oh yeah, and just fine. We're the home of the crunk and the Motown sound. One taste of Detroit and you'll stick around. Let it be for sale, we're proud to say. So why not make Detroit your town today? Better than ever before. There's no place else that I'd rather be. Better than ever before. My heart belongs to Detroit City. Better than ever before. Sending out this message from the world to know. Better than ever before. That Detroit City is the place to go. Better than ever. Better than ever. Come to Detroit, 'cause we got it together. Yeah. What a great city. What a great town. We're talking about Detroit. 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 Detroit City, yeah.
Beasley Media and Mercantile Bank recognize how important small businesses are to the success and growth of our economy. August is Black Business Month, and we want to honor and support small businesses in our community. We are awarding a $10,000 small business advertising grant from KISS FM. If you own a small business, apply now at kissfmdetroit.com/grant. 10 Detroit area small businesses will be chosen to each receive a $10,000 advertising campaign with Beasley Media, brought to you by Mercantile Bank.
Have you recently tested positive for COVID-19? You may be eligible for therapeutics like antiviral medications and antibody therapy, which could reduce your risk of hospitalization and death. If you are a high
Somebody praise the Lord.
We worship you, Almighty God.
Worship you.
We worship you forever and ever. We worship you,
Almighty God.
Almighty God. Amen. Amen.
This is the Mildred Gaddis Show. The streets are talking.
Well, I got something to say.
The streets are talking, but y'all ain't listening.
What the streets talking about then?
The streets are talking, y'all, and Mildred is listening.
One 568-1059. That's how you. One of the ways you can weigh in here on the Mildred Gaddis Show. Of course, you can share your comments about our discussions on the Mildred Gaddis Show Facebook Live. But of course, everybody's been waiting, and we're going to talk. And I want to say to you that first of all, here are the rules of the game. No, there are no rules of the game. Obviously, there are no rules of the game. There has been so much discussion, so many comments, so many accusatory statements made about the 13th Congressional District. And of course, I welcome everybody here to certainly share your opinions as well. You know, there comes a time in your life you realize that life will never be the same. And you realize that time is divided into two parts, before this and after this. And ladies and gentlemen, I really believe that is where we find ourselves right now in Detroit. Nearly 80% of its population are Black Americans. Yeah, 80%. And there are those who believe that because of that, there should be a Black person headed to Washington representing the 13th Congressional District. Well, there are others who believe that that's not necessarily so. And what I find most interesting about this outcome is how some people are not as brave as we thought they were. What do I mean by that? You know, too many people are not strong enough yet to look in the mirror and ask themselves, what is my contribution to the madness? And until you're able to do that, you really can't move on. You can't move on. And I have to tell you, what I've seen occur on social media in the last couple of days really sickens me. It really does. And it's one of those reasons why I am not a social media fan. My phone kept ringing, and I kept getting text messages and emails. I'm not one of those individuals who gets on social media to see what happens in the world. I just don't. My life is too busy. Should I say I have a life? So I don't have time. I don't have time for that. When you're angry, the worst time to respond to anything, whether you're in a marriage, whether it's on the job, I can tell you over the years, my getting angry on the job and saying things has, really taught me a lot about life and handling situations. You really sometimes have to just take a powder, check out, collect yourself, let some time pass, and then deal with it. And I'm going to take a couple of calls, and then I'm going to share with you some of what, from my perspective, and it's certainly not the only perspective, what went awry here for those people who wanted to have a black representative. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that. Let me be very clear. Let me be very, very clear. And I want to talk about the true meaning of power. What is it? The late Wade Noble said once that power is the ability to create your own reality and have others respond to it as if it were their own. That's true power. And there's some folk around this town who think they have it, but they don't. You know? And what Black Detroit delivered in this past election was unacceptable. But Black Detroit must take ownership of it. Can't blame other folk. You got to look at yourself. And we're going to talk about some of that. And I'm going to talk about, and I kept saying to a couple of friends of mine that some people need to understand that there's life after this election. You can't disrespect people, berate people, and expect them to support you. It doesn't work that way because we're all sensitive people. We really are. But first, let's take a couple of calls, and then we're going to jump right into this. Jay, you're on the Mildred Gaddis Show.
How you doing, Mildred?
I'm good.
I'm one of those. Huh?
It sounds as if you're in some place with some water.
Oh, that's what it sounds like. Oh, that's probably my. I have an Android. I haven't graduated to iPhone yet.
I have an Android too, but tell me, you're not using your earbuds. That.
No.
Okay.
I can't use those things. That makes my ear itch. I'm one of those people. When I voted in this 13th race, I voted for Sharon McPhail, right? And I found out that Shree had won. Projected to be the winner or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And as he was running, and I was seeing people say how they were going to support Shree Tanadar, I said to them, I asked them why. Do you know not one person could give me a good reason to why they would support him, except that it's just time for something different. Now, black folks, when we say it's time for something different, I don't think a lot of us really assess that. And I have no quarrels against Asians. It's just I know that when it comes to something like representing black people, why you can't have a black person doing that? And why do people, even black people, get upset when they say you need to keep it that way? Because you would never have a Chinese person saying send a black person to Congress for us. You would never have a white person saying that. Well, some liberals may, but you are not going to have no other race saying send a black person to represent them as a voice. And we would forget about that part as if they do too. And that scares me about my people because we are still, I don't know what to call it, Mildred, but what is it that we see more hope in others? We have a syndrome that is so broken that we will allow one or two to make it bad for all. And we know all aren't bad.
Well,
but yet,
I'll tell you what it is. And you can ask any behavioral scientist the same question. And here's what it is. It is PTSD. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's exactly what it is. We were conditioned to not like one another, to be suspicious of our own, and certainly to betray our own. Now, it's unacceptable in this 21st century that we'd be thinking like that. But this is not all about. Did you see where those numbers fell? Did you see where the numbers fell? See, there's a whole lot of blame, legitimate blame here. You had people in this race who should never have been in the race.
That's right.
You have people in this race who were paid to be in this race to help split the votes. And when you get past the top 4 candidates in terms of the votes that they received, the rest of those folk had no business being in this race. Yeah, I said it, and I stand on it. The rest of them didn't. They had no business being in this race. And I'll tell you this. The better candidate, the best of all these candidates, certainly did not emerge as the winner. But you had a decent pool to select from. See, Sri Thanedar, you can say what you want about him. He was very clear on what he was doing. And listen, Adam Hollier had the same money.
Yes, he did.
Adam Hollier had the same money. It was Adam Hollier who went out and started attacking Sri, calling him a Republican. And then Sri responded in kind and showed how much of a Republican Hollier was from his perspective. Okay? And Hollier was not the candidate to unite the black community. You know, he wasn't. He was not the candidate. The people who backed Hollier didn't care that he sided with the Republicans. They didn't care that he participated in helping the mayor with that insurance piece that has hurt seniors and blacks in Detroit. They didn't care about that. So you know what? They got Sri Thanedar. They did not get the candidate who could have unified this community. They didn't.
And you know, Mildred, to add to that insurance piece, I don't know if people know that when they did that, people who receive, people of special needs who receive critical services no longer get them services.
Jay, I've been talking about it. Those people are going to lose their lives.
Yes.
It's
Can't get to
horrible.
their appointments. They can't get to. Some of them can't get their medications. Some of them can't get their speech therapy no more. Some of them can't get rides to the speech therapy no more.
Let's get closer than that. Some of them can't get the health care inside their homes that they were once getting. This has been extremely injurious to a lot of people in this state. All kinds of people, all races of people. So that, you know, and that was...
why they called it the catastrophic claim? Because now look what they did. They caused a catastrophe with this. Because, like you said, those people are suffering. And I see it with my own eyes. And I know people who was bragging about the so-called saving. And when I broke that down to them, I said, do you have a person in your family or elderly who receives services because they're cognitively impaired or something? And they complain, yeah, man, the services ain't there no more. I said, well, that's that $30 you saved.
Yeah, but they didn't really save it because it does not end up being a win. And nobody enforces the truth in advertising law. It's not enforced. Those billboards and the messages were quite compelling, financed by the insurance industries, and it just didn't work. So, you know, the mayor comes on at the last minute. It wasn't a last minute. It's just that he included himself in those commercials for Hollier. And I'm telling you, he just wasn't the right guy. And being black, if that's what he is, isn't always enough. It's just, he was not the kind of candidate who could unite the community. And I'm going to...
Is he Native?
Pardon me?
Didn't he say in one of his commercials he was a Native American too? Yeah, Adam Hollier said that in one of his campaign commercials that he was Native American also.
Yep. But he just wasn't the right guy. I'm sorry. He wasn't the right guy. And there were some people who decided that they would take a risk and go with some of these other candidates than trust him to represent them. Just said plain, just said simple. Listen, we're going to continue to talk about this right after this because I want us to break this down and look at what happened. And maybe we'll learn something from it moving forward. And maybe not.
WDMK FM and WDMK FM HD1 Detroit. This is the Mildred Gaddis Show on 105.9 KISS FM, a Beasley Media Group station.
So tickets on the 20th winning weekend on KISS.
True hurts needed something more exciting. The
special tour featuring Lizzo.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Lizzo.
Is coming to Little Caesars Arena. And guess who's got your tickets?
Lizzo.
Listen to Kiss at 20 after the hour for the keyword to text. Then text the word to 313-568-1059 for your shot at tickets to see Lizzo live at the LCA.
I do my hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling?
Thursday, October 6th.
It's Lizzo.
We make you a winner in moments. Presented by Live Nation and Detroit's new #1 for smooth R&B and old school. 105.9.
Beasley Media and Mercantile Bank recognize how important small business.
trying to make us start again. Moving forward with my friends. We're better together. We're better together. We're better together. Ooh, yeah, we're better together. Oh, brick by brick, hand in hand, side by side. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Oh, brick by brick, hand in hand, side by side. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We're better together. We're better together. Yeah, we're better together. All for one and one for all. We're standing here, we're standing tall. When two of us is twice as easy. We can do anything we want, believe me. We're better together. We're better together. We're better together. Ooh, we're better together. Oh, brick by brick, hand in hand, side by side. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yeah, brick by brick, hand in hand, side by side. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
This is The Mildred Gaddis Show. The streets are talking.
Well, I got something to say.
The streets are talking, but y'all ain't listening.
What the streets talking about then?
The streets are talking, y'all. And Mildred is listening.
Twelve past 9 on this Sunday morning, 79 degrees in the city of Detroit. 313-568-1059. Detroiters weighing in on the outcome of the 13th Congressional District. Hi, Chester, what's up?
Hey, how you doing this morning, Miss Gaddis?
I'm
Tell
good.
Montez, what up?
I'm sure.
Is,
Go ahead.
the thing is, I'm not really concerned anymore. I had already told people what was happening when I did the numbers. That if all of those people remained in, they were going to pull it down. The top three, Robertson, Hollier, and Shree, were going to get the bulk of the pie. By the other people taking the little crumbs, that knocked the true winner out of that seat. So let's not worry about Shree. Let's take what's happened and look at it deeply, because we have a governor's race coming up. And if Detroit is voting and that surrounding Southeast area is voting the way they are voting, we could have a governor named Tudor, for real. Be very careful, because trends show when you start electing non-political people and people don't get up and vote, you can have people come out and do an upset just like Shree for the governor. Pay a close attention, because Haley Stevens won, Brian Banks lost, there's a couple more in certain areas where white people are dominant, what they call the dominant Democrats that's on the border of, they vote, but if they're not satisfied, they will vote Republican. We have to be very careful, because we're looking at one, but that one little drop from Shree has opened up the door for the Republicans to get in. Look at the black woman standing next to Tudor and think about what she's there for.
All right. I don't think Tudor's going to win. I don't think she's going to win because of women in the state of Michigan aren't going to tolerate her policies. I'm disagreeing with you there, my friend. Thanks for weighing in. Now, this, I want to go here because I think that it's created a lot of stuff out here, and I'm not sure what it means for the future. And most of the calls I received yesterday was about was it yesterday before yesterday, about the race and about some posts that were made. And I'm discussing it because it's already public. It's been on Facebook and everywhere. So that gives me the right to talk about it. And there were a lot of them made, but Marvin Beatty, who is a well-respected entrepreneur here in the city of Detroit, he's featured in Crain's, is a very passionate man. I have a lot of respect for him. I discussed this 13th congressional race with him prior to the election, and I called him after I saw his post. And whenever he's discussing something, he's always very passionate. I have a lot of respect. I like the guy. He made this post, and I called him, and I said, "You've got too much class." I did. I said, "No, you may curse me out after I say this to you, but you got too much class. Why are you doing this?" And he was just hurt and upset that a non-black became the winner in this race. And here's what he posted on Facebook. He said, "I am so disappointed in the 13th district election outcome. I will go further and say that the current Congresswoman, who has a ton of responsibility for the outcome of this election, I can tell you she is not to be trusted. Her word means nothing, and our community will be damaged for years to come because of her." I stopped right there. I just couldn't believe that. And then I went on to read. He said, she was a part of the consensus group and has been disingenuous as to the commitment she made to the group. I was there. There are others who knew they had no chance to win with no money, no field operation, and polls that told them that they could expect what they could expect as an election outcome. These job-seeking folks who could care less about the fact that they are part and party to the tragic place Detroiters find themselves, no black representative. The Hall of Shame is open, and you know who you are, belong in it. And Detroiters should never forget who you are and what you have done. Self over community. And I just could not believe that. And as I said, I called him and I said, "You've got too much class. Why are you putting that kind of stuff on social media?" And he was still upset over the outcome of the election. I understood where he was coming from, and I disagreed, which doesn't mean anything because it was his opinion and not mine. But I said to him, see, unlike a lot of folk, if the Congresswoman changed her mind, she had a right to do so. She had a right to do so. She was interviewed by WXYZ long before Election Day, and she said she wanted to be replaced by a black woman. So I don't understand why this came as a shock. And here's what I believe. And I think if you trace this back, I'm sure that Brenda Lawrence told somebody on that committee that if she changed her mind, that she had changed her mind. I don't believe that she gave them her word and went out and did something else and did not have a conversation with somebody on that committee before she chose to do so. I don't believe that. Now, it may be factually correct, and I stand corrected if that's the case, but I just don't believe that. Now, in addition to that, Brenda Lawrence has a right to change her mind if that is what she did. And Brenda Lawrence is not the reason. She's not the reason that a black did not win that seat. And there are people in the race who would take that position. I just don't. I think that some folk overestimated themselves. and their ability to get something done. And that is their candidate elected. See, there comes a time when as I said earlier, you've got to stand in the mirror and say, you know what? And it's the hardest thing to do sometimes, to say that you were wrong, to say, I just didn't get that right, or I should have made this particular move, and I didn't. I thought about it, but I didn't. And the other thing you've got to admit is you didn't have the right candidate, people. And I know some folk are going to be angry with me, but I have a responsibility to tell the truth. I talked to some of the people at the beginning, and I said, look, I'm not conditionally black. I was black before it became popular and trendy to be black. Long before that. And I would never do anything to hurt my people. But you got the wrong guy. And there's no way I can support that guy. There's no way. He's demonstrated who he is. I can't go along with that. There were some people who thought that this was a paternalistic move. I didn't see it that way. And I never really thought about that until Nancy Kafer pointed it out in her article she wrote that there were some women who thought it was paternalistic. I never thought that. I thought, once I heard about all the folk who were getting together, that they were missing a lot of folk who should have been in a meeting like that. But you got to say, you know what, folk? I was really with this, but maybe we did make a mistake. Maybe we did. Maybe we should have done something a little bit different. I think when you start pointing fingers, what is it that they say? You have a thumb pointed back at yourself when you start pointing at everybody else. There were several key factors in here. But you know something? There were 2 people who responded. Well, there was 4. And Ian Charles Anderson should be quiet. He should really be quiet. He made a post over there like, what do you do at the Urban League? What does the Urban League do? He wrote, a damn shame, my brother. Come on. When have we heard him take a stand on anything significant to improve the quality of the lives of the people in the city of Detroit? We haven't. That's why social media. You see, grown folk, But anyway, I'm going to share with you what Dalton Robertson Jr. posted. And I'm going to share with you, if you didn't read it, what Sherry Danyogo posted. And let's take Sherry first. She posted, it's sad that you post this without full disclosure. Your legacy committee was flawed from the inception. You all did Duggan's bidding. You initially indicated that you would support me until Rev and Duggan said otherwise. To make matters worse, you all went to people that would support me and you tried to get them to not support me. Y'all's candidate is no better than what you have now. Black is not enough. Someone who has fought for our community should have been given the opportunity to compete, especially when I stepped aside twice for the last 2 congressional races. I respect you as a businessman, but you all are just as much to blame. Now, what's bothersome in that post is nobody's owed a seat. Nobody is owed a congressional seat. I understand hurt feelings. I understand competition. But once you make that choice to get in the race, it's on you. And she's right. She's right. Some folk told her that they had been approached by some other folk to withdraw their money, their financial support, to not give her money. That's enough to be mad about, because it's about, having the resources do what you need to do in a campaign. But there wasn't a single person in this race who was owed a U.S. Congress seat. Just didn't, that was just not the case. And I'm not saying, before you all start lying on me, because I know what you do. And I don't want anybody calling me about anything I said. Play the show back and listen to it for yourself. somebody tells you I said something about it, listen to it. Because when it gets to you, it's entirely different. Dalton Roberson Jr. did a post about this. And he said that Detroit simply doesn't support black male congressional candidates. And he went on to talk about that Detroit had not elected a black man to Congress in over 40 years. He said Congress won a special election. Before that, it was Conyers in 1965 and Charles Diggs in 1955. Since then, it's been all women. Barbara Rose Collins, Cheeks Kilpatrick, Lawrence, and Tlaib. The only other men elected were either Asian Hanson Clark or white Gary Peters. As recent as 2014, he posted, we saw the well-funded consensus candidate Rudy Hobbs lose to Brenda Lawrence. Folks fail to heed the lessons of history or the unquestionable fact that black women are the single most powerful force in Democratic Party politics. Joe Biden realized it, so I don't know why so many smart men didn't, especially with the leak of the Supreme Court's decision and how it would motivate and galvanize women voters. You know what? He's on it. He's on it. He's on it. And I heard a lot of people who are supposed to know how this game goes say at the very beginning that it would take, if a black person won, it would have to be a black woman. That was the conversation. So where do we go from here? That's really the question. Where do we go from here? When we look at the demographics quite clearly, where do we go from here? And I'm going to share some research information so that we'll get a better photograph, if you will, of where we are. Brandon, you're on the air.
Hey, hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good.
So normally I don't really call the radio station, but I want all your listeners to actually pay attention to what's going on, especially with Tree Calidar. I've been listening to his ads and how his ads talks about, Tree's going to talk about or work for reparations. The Democratic Party knows how to get black votes, and they know that blacks, and just to let you know, I'm a black male as well. I voted for Democrats, and I started to wake up to see that the Democratic Party doesn't give a rat's ass about no blacks whatsoever. And no, he could butt in. So, but it triggers me the most where people want to say, the Republicans are racist. But in the past 30-something years, what has the Democratic Party done for the city of Detroit? What have the Democratic Party done for the teachers? They want to talk about raises, but they don't. They want to talk about equal rights. They don't. There's only one party who actually...
Brandon, let me say this to you. And I hear you loud and clear. But I would throw that same question back to you about the Republican Party. I'll tell you something. The late Julian Bond said something to me, and this was in 1973. I had a chance to interview him. And Brandon, and that was before he got into all that trouble, but I just never forgot what he said. He said, asking me to abandon the Democratic Party is like asking me to walk away from a woman I've been married to 40 years who, it hasn't been smooth, it hasn't been easy, but she's always been there, and she supported me and tolerated me, even when I didn't deserve it. You're asking me to abandon her and take off with a woman who's never, ever looked my way. And I was in undergraduate school. I had the opportunity to interview him, and that was what he said. And I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. Blacks have been blindly loyal to the Democratic Party. Make no mistake about it. No mistake about it. The Democratic Party has not always been what it should have been to black voters. You're spot on there. But what has the Republican Party done for black Americans? You know, and under Nixon's short tenure, there were a couple of things there, and you're right. But I'm saying to you, over the long haul, black Americans have found the Democratic Party to be a tad more respectful, a tad more congenial, and supporting some of the policies that have been significant in black Americans having equal access. And you know what those pieces of legislation are.
Now, just to let you know, I am 30, so I don't know nothing much about the Nixon's administration. So, but
well, at 30, with all the information available at your fingertips, that's unacceptable, Brandon. So
I will let you know. Now, you're asking more how the Republican Party done for the people. I personally do believe that the Republicans need us. And the Democrats thinks that blacks, if you vote for me, I would do this. We don't need a party. The party needs us. That's how we're supposed to thrive to make this country work and make sure that all Americans is getting what they need. So, for example, I don't need the Democratic Party telling me my rights. I know my rights. I want to be free, and I would like to have the right to say what I want. See, the Democratic Party is silencing me nonstop.
How is the Democrat? Wait, Brandon, you got to tell us. And I've got to move on because I've got to go to break.
Okay.
But how is the Democratic Party silencing you?
Well, with Facebook, everything, I'm trying to speak, or even I live in a white city. And I get lots of people out here who are Democrats who tell me, you're not allowed to say that. You can't do that. You can't fly your flag up in the air. It's offensive. You need to take it down.
Are you talking about your neighbors?
Oh, the whole city. Lots of cities.
Okay. You're losing me, Brandon. You're losing me. I tell you what, the number one enemy, the number one problem, let me say, that we have is a void, VOID, in effective black leadership. That's our issue. It's not, there is not clarity there. A void in effective black leadership. That's our problem. If that were not the case, we would not have had 9 people in this race. There's no way. There's no way. And that speaks to this void in black elective leadership. Just because someone is holding political office doesn't make them a leader. Just because someone has a church with thousands of people there doesn't make them a leader. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. And what has not been happening in this part of the country, because we can look at some of the networks and we can see some phenomenal young black talking heads who are engaged, they're relentless, they're committed to the advancement of black Americans, unequivocally and unapologetically. We don't see that in this area. So I don't know what the millennials around here are doing. But here's what we know. Einstein warned us. The thinking that has brought us to where we find ourselves today has created some new problems that way of thinking cannot solve. And once we understand that and we make some kind of effort to rectify that, we'll find ourselves sitting here with the same discussion. With the same discussion. Now, you know, black folk all over America say, what's wrong with the black folk in Detroit? Yeah. You know? What do we have now? We have a black executive, Wayne County executive, who may be the highest ranking black in the state. I think I've got to think about this during the commercial break. I think he is. We have that. We don't have a black mayor. We've got a Wayne County prosecutor. We have a Wayne County clerk. Just think about it. Just something for you to think about at a time when we've got more information available to us in all human history. This is the moment. This is the time. You know, we've got folk running around here enriching themselves and their family and their friends, going in, negotiating, some of them hustling, getting monthly stipends from corporations in this town. What are they doing for the masses of the people? So it's time for, if this race doesn't show us anything else, it shows us two things. One, that there is a void in effective black leadership. Secondly, it's time for a reset. It's time for a reset.
.5.9 KISS FM wants to make sure that your child is ready with all the tools they need for back to school. Beginning Monday, August 15th, Mason and Star will kick off their Laptop a Day giveaway. Go to KissFMDetroit.com now and register for a chance to win a laptop for your student just in time for back to school. Then starting August 15th, if we call your name, just call us back in time and you win. The Mason and Star Laptop a Day giveaway, powered by Republic Record and the station getting Detroit geared up for back to school. 105.9 KISS FM.
COVID-19 pandemic is still very much with us. AARP believes that all eligible Americans should get vaccinated, and those eligible should get boosted to keep yourself, your children, and your grandchildren safe, and to put an end to this pandemic once and for all. AARP is your trusted source of information on the boosters and the vaccines in general. Our state-by-state vaccine guides can help people find out where and when to get vaccinated. Learn more at aarp.org.
At LensCrafters, we value...
This is The Mildred Gaddis Show. The streets are talking.
Well, I got something to say.
The streets are talking, but y'all ain't listening.
What the streets talking about then?
The streets are talking, y'all, and Mildred is listening.
Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Mildred. How are you?
I'm good. Talk to me.
Okay, I heard what you said in your last segment and about people blaming Brenda Lawrence and then also blaming the other candidates for getting into the race, and that was the reason for the loss. But let's share something that people aren't talking about. I have a saying that says, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So let's take a quick look at the numbers. Adam Hollier raised $7.6 million. Okay, he raised $4.3 million from Unite Democracy Project. Vote Vets, he raised $760,000. Project for Protect Our Future, he raised $960,000. Web 3 Forward, he raised $400,000. DMF IPAC, he raised $100,000, and within his campaign, he raised $1.1 million. However, he still lost to Tanadar in the city of Detroit, and also totally in the 13th. And if you combine the votes of everybody else other than Portia, he lost to them, both in Detroit and in the 13th district. And if you bring in Portia's votes, he was beat. He was doubled by all the other votes, both in Detroit and within the 13th district. So how then can you say with a candidate that raised $7.6 million, and again, remember, Canada only was supposed to give $5 to his campaign, but a candidate that raised $7.6 million, that is somebody else's fault that they lost.
Hello.
You cannot say that.
Hello. Listen. Wait a minute. I want you to say that. I want you to say that loud and clear. It was the wrong candidate.
Exactly. To a candidate. And oh, by the way, if you look at Portia Roberson, she was within 5 points of him, both in the city and outside of the city, and she raised 4%. I'm going to repeat, 4% of the money that Adam Hollier raised.
Listen, Will.
So at the end of the day, again, Mildred, let me make this clear, because everybody's getting emotional. Everybody's making these statements about Brenda. Everybody's making these statements about other people. At the end of the day, you had $7.6 million, and you lost, and your numbers were doubled by the other candidate. To your point, Mildred, they had the wrong candidate. Point blank, period.
You know, I'm glad somebody's getting that. I said it from the very beginning. He was the wrong candidate. Let me just tell you, when that poll came out, and this was a poll from, was it done for DeadlineDetroit.com? I think it was done for DeadlineDetroit.com. And it wasn't even, I think it was from May, and it didn't make sense to me why they were showing these results from a May poll. But he was losing in the city. Detroiters didn't like him. And here's another thing. I had heard that the mayor said early on that he liked both Portia and he liked Hollier, and that he wasn't going to endorse either one of them. I didn't hear the mayor say that. I just heard from some of the operatives, okay? And at the last minute, Duggan got in the game. Now, I don't know if he got in the game on those commercials because he saw Hollier losing. You know, he knew what most folk didn't know, because he's a smart man when it comes to political science. Can't take that away from him. But he got in. Now, I don't know if that was supposed to help Hollier. I'm sure it was supposed to help him, but it did not help him. $7 million. I understand. 7.6 million. It's over 5, so you can round that off. You know how to do that, right? What they used to teach us. There's a problem, Houston. There's a problem.
I want to ask you a question because you've followed politics for a very long time in the city of Detroit and in this area, Mildred. Have you in your lifetime ever heard of a candidate that has raised $7.6 million and got doubled by their opponents?
That's incredible. No, I haven't. It's incredible. It's incredible. And I don't think that these people who supported Hollier are willing, they're brave enough at this point to say we picked the wrong horse. I don't think they're brave. I don't think they want to have that discussion with themselves right now. You know, I just don't. I don't think they want to have that discussion with themselves. Because with that kind of money, but again, I'm telling you, Will, and I'm so glad you've explained that the way that you have to us. Because it's time for a shift. It's time for a shift. It just is. And people, it was our former Ben Jealous who said that there are two kinds of election of candidates. Organized money and organized people. And when the people are organized, the money doesn't matter. $7.6 million. They weren't going with this guy. Nice guy. I understand he's smart. I don't know him. Wrong candidate.
Bottom line, like I said at the beginning, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. $7.6 million, and you couldn't win Detroit or the race overall. Wrong candidate, period.
You know something's wrong when the Republicans are saying he's trying to out-Republican us. You know, what are you doing voting for that mess over there? You don't have a gravel pit in Detroit. What's your problem? Thank you, Will. Thank you. Good to hear from you this morning. Appreciate it. Ronald, you're on the Mildred Gaddis Show.
Oh, good morning, Miss Gaddis. I've been listening to your radio show before I listened to the bogus in church. I grew up, I'm a Vietnam vet. I grew up on my granddaddy's and grandmama's farm in Georgia, 60 miles north of Augusta. My grandmama's on my dad's side, Columbia University. We have been lost out on any help from the federal government. I volunteer at in the black community where it's needed. I live in Redford Township. The bigotry that goes on here is beyond recompense. Now, the people that are calling, they're too young to know anything about life in the first place. I see a lot of a newly elected lady was caught in the snow in February. Democratic for Redford and Livonia Township with 2 flat tires, but she's running. No, I don't vote for no Hollier. I come out of Vietnam in 1970, August 26th. I was trained customer service, do what you can for people. Well, I volunteer to this day.
Hey, Ronald.
Yes, ma'am.
I need you to make your point, my dear. Where are we going with this?
You are absolutely correct. Run them preachers out of the church, but they don't do folks no good. You ran off and left the flock. And you got young folks that the only thing they say is you get what we gonna get because they don't go out and vote.
Okay, I appreciate you listening to the show, and I certainly appreciate you calling the show. I want to share something with you guys. That someone posted on Facebook. Now I usually don't respond to what folks say about me because I could really care less. Then you might say, well, why are you responding now? Because I think this one is pretty interesting. Instead of taking it like a man because his guy didn't win, here's what he said. He said, I tried to tell you folks that this was going to be the result from attacking black men like they did. Bless his cotton socks. Now you have an Arab representing black people in the 12th and an Indian representing black people in the 13th Congressional District. What has been happening on the Mildred Gaddis show in the last 4 weeks has been disgraceful. He says most of the people that were, Kenneth Reed posted that, in the 13th race has no path to victory and didn't have a base to begin with. I hope that everyone is happy now. This will go on for decades. Now, you know, I am so grateful that God has been so tremendously kind and generous and patient with me that my life does not depend on my career. This is my 46th year in radio. So I must have been doing something right, I think, kind of. Nobody hangs around that long without doing something that's worthwhile. That I don't have to worry about whether someone likes me or whether or not I'm going to be punished because I don't get this contract or that contract. I've never had, thank God, he's been so gracious and so kind to me. I don't have to worry about those kinds of things. When I decided to do talk radio, which I didn't want to do, got to tell you that. I was a news director. I was doing news and all that stuff was good, but it ended up me doing talk. And one of the things I realized that I had to do was to be honest, try to make as few mistakes as possible, because in talk radio you get lawsuits when you don't do the right thing. Never had to deal with that. Never had a station sued, never been sued personally for something I've said on the air. And I've had the freedom to do that, but I made a commitment that I would not be typical when I decided that I was going to do it. That I would not have a mundane show, because that doesn't serve anybody. And once I started doing Black Talk, I realized, and I saw more than I ever imagined, just how important it was to tell the truth, how important it was to discuss issues that are relevant to the community, and to somehow bring information that will impact the community in a positive way. And understand that sometimes telling the truth was not going to make everybody happy. I recall a former mayor and his mother, who was a congresswoman, went to the owner of my previous radio station and tried to encourage Kathy Hughes to fire me. He went, she went. And Ms. Hughes' response was, if she ever tells a lie, give me a call. And with my friends, I've had to talk about my friends sometimes, but I always gave them a warning. I just want to let you know, I'm going to have to discuss this, and you can come on and say what you want to say, but I've got to do it because I had a responsibility to do it. And I still have that same responsibility. And whether it's Kenneth, and I could care less what he thinks of me, there will be some people, people stopped speaking to me when I was doing talk every day because I told the truth. But when everybody else in town got on the bandwagon, it was only Kurt Guyette over at the Metro Times and Mildred Gaddis on CHB. Okay? But when everybody got on the bandwagon, it was a different story. You know? I love everybody, but I'm passionately in love with black people. If you don't understand that, talk to a woman. She'll tell you the difference between being loved and being passionately loved, and maybe you might get it then. But I'm passionately in love with black people, and I want us to do okay. It's horrible that we're in this 21st century America, and we are still grappling with racism and being denied access, and some of our people are betraying us, you know. I have to talk about those things. It's the funny thing. I could talk about John James all day. You all didn't have anything to say about that. Okay? There are a whole lot. I can talk about Donald Trump all day. I talk about a whole lot of folk. You don't have a problem with that. But when the guy you want to win doesn't win, you want to call that disgraceful? Get a life, my friend. Get a life.
And 105.9 KISS FM cares about the community. We're dedicated to keeping you informed, especially now and what's going on. Here's Mildred Gaddis.
The Accounting Aid Society of Detroit slogan is, we use taxes to build relationships and relationships to build futures. Here's CEO Priscilla Perkins.
And what we want to make sure is that individuals are aware through the American Rescue Plan that you get the money and the tax credits that are due to you. Many people are not aware and don't file, even if you have disputes with the IRS. Learn what you can do to get help. Come on in. Information is power.
Call 313-556-1920. The Accounting Aid Society. I'm Mildred Gaddis.
Thanks, Mildred. If you have an announcement or community event that you would like us to air, email us at kisscares@1059kissfmdetroit.com.
Beasley Media and Michigan.
You can say it, baby. You're headed out the door. It's all just a game. You just putting on the show. Ain't got a thing to tell me. I don't already know. You can tell the stories. I don't want to hear no more. I know that you ain't blind, but baby, you can't see. I got news for you, baby. You're still in love with me. I'm telling you the truth, baby. Ain't you heard the news? You're still in love. You're still in love. You're still in love with me. I got news for you, baby. I got news for you, baby. You're still in love. You're still in love. You're still in love with me. You're still in love. You're still in love. You're still in love with me. Say about
everybody's talking about, and I tell you, I'm sure that you and your friends have been talking about it as well, and that is the outcome of the 13th congressional district race. You know, at a time like this, you have to ask yourself, what are the lessons here? Because whatever the lesson is that we're supposed to get, if we don't get it, we'll find ourselves right here again. You know, one of the things, and Nicole Small is on the line, and I want her to hold on. Please do not hang up. Everyone should have known that with 9 candidates in that race, 9 black candidates in the race, now 8 black candidates in the race, that the votes would be split. This is not new to us. We've seen it happen before. But here's what some folks fail to realize. Sri Thanadar was the only candidate who had been on the ballot statewide. In 2018, he ran for governor, and he won the city of Detroit. And a lot of you all laughed and joked about it when Gretchen Whitmer ended up winning. During his 2018 run for governor, he garnered over 40,000 votes from Hamtramck, Harper Woods, Highland Park, Allen Park, Romulus, Taylor, River Rouge, Ecorse, and other downriver cities. This does not include Detroit nor the amount of votes that he received in 2020 when he won his seat in the Michigan State House. Now, when you add his votes from 2020 during his run for state rep, he received over 45,000 votes from the cities in the newly drawn 13th congressional district. Let me say that again. Over 45,000 people had already voted for him in previous elections. With that being said, even with losing 50% of those who had voted for him prior, he still would have roughly a base of 23,000 votes. Now, there were a few other candidates who represented small portions of the 13th district, but none of them, not a one, went into this race with a base that large. With no agenda, no plan, no field plan, and nothing executed, what did people expect the outcome of this 13th congressional district race to be? This is a clear example of why black communities continue to suffer. And I've already shared with you in Roberson's post, in Dalton Jr.'s post, how long it's been since Detroiters have elected a black man to Congress. Nicole Small, good morning.
Good morning, Mildred. How are you?
Hi. Make some sense of it, if you will.
So a couple of things. I definitely understand the frustration that a lot of people have that we have lost a lot of black political representation, which means that we've diluted our political power. But let's just be honest. We knew that this was coming. We knew it was coming with so many people, black people splitting the vote. With that said, I do agree with you. I think you make a very valid point. I think we take things for granted. Right? Sri did run a statewide election, and he won Detroit. While I do believe there was a small percentage or a difference between his winning Detroit for this election, the 13th, and Adam Ollier, he had more money. We knew he filed with $5 million. In 2021, we knew he was going to file this year with $5 million. I don't know what happened at this whole legacy group that they thought putting up a Indian American who has $5 million, who we knew used to be a Republican, up against a candidate who has voted with Republicans and sometimes as the only so-called Democrat was going to fare well. And I'm just being honest with you. With that many people in a race, that's one thing. The second thing is I think that it's very disingenuous for Marvin Beatty to blame all of this on Brenda Lawrence, and I'll tell you why. Some of those people who are at that table, they need to assume some responsibility for why we're in the predicament that we're in. Not just why we lost the 13th, but why we're in the predicament that we're in. Some of them have already set precedents that The blackest city in this country does not deserve, nor do we need black representation. If you can't take care of black representation in your own house and in your own backyard, I'd be doggone if you think that you're going to branch out to other cities and be able to do it. When they decided to continuously support a white mayor that has been treacherous for black leadership and black empowerment, they set the standard. Several of them who were at that table. So you can't be black when it's convenient. That's not how this thing works. And you've done it administration after administration, election after election. You said it was okay. And so now some people say, well, if it's okay then I know it's going to be okay now. And let's just all be honest about how we got here. And everybody got a right to make their own decision. But this is what happened when we set this type of standard, right? So I'm not going to put it, and I don't know what happened. I wasn't there at the meeting. But they had to know that Congresswoman Lawrence had already contacted Portia Robertson to run before they had the meeting. So what did you think she was going to do? It's not making sense to me, right? And then you take a look at the post that you read that Sherry Gay wrote, and I understand she's probably heated because someone who said that they were standing behind her is all over the campaign finance report for Sri Tanadar and had been working with Sri as early as April or May. I don't know how Sherry didn't know that because the rest of us knew it. It was obvious, right? It was obvious. But I don't think Sherry should have ran in the 13th. I'm going to be honest with you. Her base was over in the 12th. I can get that she didn't want to run against Congresswoman Tlaib. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think Sherry would have had more votes than any of the other black women that ran in the 12th. She would have garnered more votes over there because that was her base. I don't think the 13th was for her. I also believe that we need to have a conversation about people who claim to be black political influencers. If you can't get a Michael Griffey to get out of the race, you can't get a Sharon McPhail to get out of the race, you can't let Sam Riddle know that this not going to work for you, I don't know how powerful you are. And I'm just being honest. You know, all of this asking is not getting us anywhere because back when Coleman Young, Buzzy Battle, and Millender, they would have told you either you going to sit down or you going to get put down. And I'm just being honest. That conversation should have been had. It was far too many people in the race. And so Sri won. And so instead of pointing the finger, because there's some blame to go around for everybody, who going to sit down and convene at the table to be very strategic and talk about how we going to make a change in 2 years? Isn't that what the Tea Party did?
Absolutely.
They didn't keep licking their wounds when Obama won. They had their first meeting the day of his inauguration. So where is that type of strategy is what I want to know. I just think that we may not learn from this event that has occurred. I don't know if we will.
I'm with you. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. And I think that is most unfortunate. And here's what I do know, and I'm sure you do too. There were some conversations had with a couple of folk, and they were told to go in another direction in terms of the people who approached them. They weren't interested. When I say that there's a void in effective black leadership, we know that some of these folks should not have been in this race. We know that some of these folk took a little stipend. And when I'm looking at the small amounts of money these folk have been getting, that's I'm astounded at that. But some of them were paid, and they didn't get paid a lot of money either to get in this race. And they have no sense of something called the greater good. You know? They know they couldn't win. I think it's most unfortunate. But there has to be, you know, we know folk who would have been convening a meeting the next morning You know, and not a pretend meeting either. You know,
and not a unity breakfast, because that wasn't it. That wasn't it either. You can go and have a unity breakfast all you want to, because you parading around a person who has won, and that's fine. But what kind of unity came out of that? Because a lot of the people who were at that breakfast, to my understanding, are a part of the problem. They were playing both sides of the fence too.
The day the sun went down in Detroit. Thank you so much. Good to hear from you this morning. Okay.
Great.
Bye-bye. You know, I said this morning that I want, and I think we have enough time to get it done, and that is, I want you all, and a lot of you remember him, and you remember his time in the Sun, but I want you to listen to the leadership and the character of the late Bill Russell we lost a week ago today. He passed at the age of 89, but listen to who he was as a man. I want to share this with you.
Hello, I'm Chris Fowler for Sports Century. Bill Russell was basketball's first truly athletic big man. His astonishing vertical leap allowed him to rebound and block shots with an almost laughable dominance. He perfected the outlet pass, triggering the legendary Boston fast break. Over 13 years in the NBA, Bill Russell won 11 championships, making him the greatest winner in the history of professional sports.
Something in his eyes. He would glower in such a way to inspire confidence in his teammates and fear among his opponents.
The whole game for Bill Russell was a psychological event. He was always testing you.
Psychologically, he knew when you were tired, and he'd watch you bend down and hold your shorts, and he'd whisper something to you like, "Getting to you, that's pretty hot here, isn't it?"
Bill Russell would be introduced, and he would walk out, and he would fold his arms like a Watusi chieftain. This is Mr. Bill Russell. We're here for serious business.
Russ let you know that this was his ground. This is my territory, and you're not going to be allowed in that territory.
Russ is driving to the hoop, and he stops it. The Boston Celtics are once again the world champions.
Russell was the winningest person I've ever been around. Would do superhuman things when they needed it to be done.
The Celtics were involved in the final stages of the playoffs against the Los Angeles Lakers. After the afternoon game, at about midnight, I got a phone call from Russell saying, "I need you to come and get me." So I jumped in my car, ran over and got him, and he was slumped in this phone booth, and he was bleeding out of his left arm. There was an altercation in the bar. He tried to get between a couple people, and he got accidentally stabbed. A friend of mine was a doctor who sewed him up and kept him in bed all the next day. And then he went out to play the Lakers in the 7th and final game in the center for the Los Angeles Lakers, recognized that there was something wrong with Russell's arm, and he started hitting him on the patch. I watched Russell's eyes, and I'd never seen such sheer ferocity come out, and I knew that that guy was in trouble. Russell proceeded to play this guy right off the court, just carried that team right to the championship right-handed.
In 30 games in which his team faced elimination, including finals in the NCAA tournament, the Olympics, and NBA playoffs, Bill Russell was 28-2. He won with intelligence, intimidation, and an innovative form of denial that foreshadowed the modern game.
He not only controlled the damn backboard completely,
but he revolutionized the defensive game as well.
Driving the lane, he lays it up as blocked by Russell.
He made shot blocking an art and proved that quickness and finesse and brains was a match for brawn.
As a shot blocker, I played before they kept statistics. Here's a guy that probably averaged over 10 blocks a game.
If I'm going down the sideline from the right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to slam it. And I got up and I'm sailing in about a foot above the basket, and I looked up a foot above me. There was Bill Russell.
He had great timing, great quickness. If you didn't see him driving to the hoop, you knew he was going to be there somewhere.
I can't tell you how many layups were missed by individuals that heard footsteps behind them thinking it was Bill Russell swooping in.
He never fouled you. He never went for the ball when it was in your hand. He let you shoot. He just went up with his wrist and flicked it. And he always blocked it to Casey Jones or Sam Jones or Bob Cousy. They were off and running.
He was made for a team sport. He got a high off mastering the geometry and the chemistry of basketball with his teammates and winning.
He was such a proud man that you wanted to be as proud as he was or have it rub off on you.
The loyalty Russell engendered was defined in the 7th game of the 1965 Eastern Division Final.
There's something like 4 seconds left in the game. We inbound the ball, we win the game, knock Philadelphia and wilt out of the playoffs, and move on to the finals.
Bill Russell took the ball to throw it in bounds, and we were all pressing at him. Russell throws the ball, all of a sudden the ball goes straight down.
He loses the ball off the court, and the ball goes to Philadelphia with 5 seconds left.
As we were leaving the huddle was Russell. He said, "Will someone please take these goat horns that I'm sprouting off my head?"
If the chemistry wasn't exactly right, everybody would have said, well, you're getting the most money, you're getting the most publicity, get yourself off the hook.
Greer's putting the ball on a play. He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it. Over his man goal. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over.
But he had helped us out so many times, and we believed in him so much. There was a communion of spirit and a belief in each other.
It's all over.
Russell was the anvil upon which Red Auerbach hammered out the famous Celtic character. Sometimes it required that he spill his guts.
Russell had this ability to focus on what he was doing. It was so important to him that he became physically ill.
One day we're playing a playoff game, and I said, okay, let's go out and get the job done. And all of a sudden I realized Russell didn't vomit. So I called the team back. I got him back in the dressing room. I said, all right, sit down. I paced up and back for about 10 seconds. I said, Russell, go vomit. Everybody looked. He got up, went to the head there and vomited. We came back and we won.
Admired for his
Tickets on the 20th winning weekend on KISS.
True hurts needed something more exciting.
The special tour featuring Lizzo.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Lizzo.
Is coming to Little Caesars Arena.
working my way up, 'cause I've been down. Baby, you've been messing me around. You can call me crazy, but you can't call me lazy. I'm working my way up.
And now, back to the Mildred Gaddis Show on 105.9 KISS.
Remembering Mr. Bill Russell.
Intensity in the locker room, Russell often displayed an abrasive attitude towards the public and the press.
He really wasn't very friendly. If you didn't know him, you'd probably say, man, he's the nastiest guy in the world. He didn't smile a lot. He was serious. He gave short answers. If you ask him a question, he felt it was a dumb question. He didn't answer.
You should always say about the media that I would not mind talking to them if they knew what to ask me.
can you do the job impartially without any racial prejudice in reverse?
Yes. Bill Russell, one of the really terrible guys I ever encountered in sports. He was just not a day at the beach. Surly, rude. He was a pain in the ass.
How do you feel about going into another 7th game, this time on somebody else's floor?
We've done it before.
He held so many people at arm's length that the truth of the matter was that Bill Russell would not have been beloved anywhere. And I suspect it didn't matter to him because he didn't do anything to court that.
In your new role as coach, are you going to be a little more public relations conscious than you were as a player?
No. He was always going to stand up and say exactly what he thought. If you didn't like it, that was too bad. You couldn't second-guess Russell because Russell told you the first guess. Right there, you knew.
When you come to write the story about Bill Russell and everything that he has done, it can be encapsulated in one word, and that is defensive. Everything about him, everything about his personality, everything about the way he played basketball spoke to being defensive.
Born in Monroe, Louisiana on February 12, 1934, 20 years before the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against segregation, William Felton Russell was imbued with a family tradition of standing up to the white man. The times hadn't changed since Bill's grandfather held off the Klan one night with a shotgun.
When you growing up in Louisiana and there's a mob and somebody's gonna kick your daddy's ass or lynch him, you know, if you don't get out the house, and your daddy says, we're not getting out the house. You know, that's it. They're just gonna have to kill us. That was growing up in Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and Georgia. It was life and death stuff.
He had a lot of things happen to him in his young lifetime. He had to drive back to Louisiana. They had to sleep in the car because they couldn't find housing, and they weren't allowed to use the bathrooms, and they had to stop and pee beside the road.
Russell read a phrase in his history textbook that the slaves in America were happier and better adjusted here as slaves than they had been in, darkest Africa, where they were cannibals and ate each other in soup. And he said, I can't believe somebody's saying that people are better off as slaves. And he never got over that. And of course, he would go and ask people, how can this be? And he'd never get a satisfactory answer.
Unwilling to tolerate a white-dominated society, Bill's father, Charlie, moved his family west, settling in Oakland, California in 1943. 3 years later, Bill's mother, Katie, died of kidney failure at just 32.
I think that emotional crisis of losing his mother probably set the tone for Russell. That was a family with its center gone, migrating beyond the known world.
Even in high school, he was a little shy. It may have been because he was a tall, gangly type, didn't get invited to dances. He was just as much of a mystery person as he is now.
Standing 6'2", Bill caught the eye of basketball coach George Poles, who created a 16th spot for him on his junior varsity. During the summer, Poles sponsored Russell on a boys' club team.
The area we were in, it was a very narrow line between okay and going the wrong way. When George gave Bill money out of his pocket to go to play in the boys' club, what he was saying there is, Bill, I want you to go work on your skills so it will help you to be a better basketball player, help you to be a better person.
The first discovery that he had in the court was he wanted to play defense, and he could picture scorers going through a move to the basket and picture him in mirror image stopping it with his left hand blocking the shot.
With his tremendously long arms, he was just unbelievable on the backboard and everything. And we used to tell him, hey, Bill, we take a shot, we miss, you get the ball and get it back out to us, and then we'll start over again.
In his senior year at McClymonds High School, Russell's play encouraged a University of San Francisco alum to successfully lobby for a scholarship for him at the college across the bay.
I went to see George Poles. I said, George, maybe I'm dreaming, but I honestly think this kid, if we could train him, teach him, could be great.
We met that summer in the coach's office, and we were introduced. And he looks down, and I look up, and nice to meet you. Right away, I'm intimidated by his height. I've never been around a guy that tall. And then we became roommates. I didn't speak to the guy for about 6 months. I was shy. So one day I said, you know something, Bill? And all of a sudden he jumped up out of his chair and he turned around and got right down in front of me and said, yeah, Case?
At 6'9½", Russell led San Francisco to a record 55 straight victories and back-to-back NCAA titles in 1955 and 56.
When I was working for Time and Sports Illustrated, we just constantly sent memos back to New York saying you should think of putting this guy from San Francisco on the cover. And they'd come back and say, yeah, but we got the box score last night. He got 6 points. And we'd say, yeah, but did you notice the other team only got 42?
Well aware of Russell's defensive skills, Boston coach Red Auerbach also knew that the center would be taken early in the 1956 NBA draft. So with a trade brewing with St. Louis, which had the number 2 pick, Auerbach got a backdoor assist from Celtics owner Walter Brown, who made sure that Rochester did not choose Russell with its number 1 selection.
Walter Brown was the owner of the Ice Capade Show and gave Lester Harrison up in Rochester a guarantee that the Ice Show would go to Rochester for X amount of time, for X amount of years, if they won't take Russell. So knowing that Rochester won't spend the pick on Russell, Red's comfortable making the deal with St. Louis. So basically, they got Russell for the Ice Capades.
In a trade for Ed McCauley and Cliff Hagan, Russell went to the Celtics. After leading the U.S. basketball team to an Olympic gold medal in Melbourne, Australia, he had a rookie season in which he averaged 20 rebounds and carried Boston to its first NBA championship.
Prior to Bill coming, we had plenty of people who could score. We just didn't have the size. He didn't have to bring scoring. He brought defense and rebounding to us.
Boston won an unprecedented 9 NBA championships, including 8 straight in Russell's first 10 seasons. But despite his role as the centerpiece in the Celtics dynasty, he was never embraced by a city ethnically divided.
Your body is an incredible
In 1959, Russell touched his ancient roots on a trip to Africa. 4 years later, he went to Mississippi after Medgar Evers had been murdered and conducted a basketball clinic in Jackson, the belly of the beast.
He was an extraordinarily brave guy. A lot of people told him he couldn't go to the funeral, that he would be shot at too. And in fact, they chased his car and they tried to scare him.
A reporter was asking him, why are you coming down here? Russell said, unwavering, I'll do anything I can do to help. Seeing him out of a uniform in Mississippi, when they're catching hell down there, they're killing people, and here is the greatest center of all time. And I'd never seen a black athlete in that context. I just remember thinking, that's why that guy is so good, because that guy's got commitment.
Young people saw in Bill Russell exactly what they were looking for, a proud, strong, black athlete who would stand up there and be very, very smart and uncompromising in what he said. I think they found in Bill Russell the antidote for racism.
In an era when most black athletes chose to be silent, Russell stood to his full height. He charged the NBA with racial quotas and pushed for the first black referee.
I first met Muhammad Ali as Cassius Clay sitting in a coffee shop in Cincinnati with Russell. I remember Russell giving him instructions then on how he would conduct himself as a black athlete. He was way out in the forefront of that.
Russell was one of the first so-called Negroes that I ever met in my life who called himself black, when it was not fashionable, when it was insulting to be called black.
He walked around town for years with a cape. Why? Well, he thought it was cool, and he knew it would just make people react. The goatee was a phenomenally hostile statement for the average white person.
He was not out there to make white people feel good about themselves. He said, take me as I am, or don't take me at all.
Are you saying then that there are white people who will never accept Negro people? Is that what you mean?
Sure, there are Negro people that will never accept white people. He wrote an article one time, the heading at one of the top pages, I hate all white people. And I was sitting in the dressing room reading it. Russ walked in and I says, Russ, this article says you hate all white people. You hate me? He said, Frank, I was misquoted.
Bill Russell was not anti-white, but anybody who did not respect him, black, white, or otherwise, he would drop you like a sack of rotten potatoes.
Russ, in my judgment, used to go through this Jekyll and Hyde transformation. When he was in the unit, he was incredibly outgoing, very clever in terms of humor.
He had a laugh that would blow the roof off a building at times.
Hey, listen, we're close, but we're not funny.
He enjoyed the camaraderie of the team. I mean, we were all like brothers.
And all of a sudden, he'd step outside that unit, get into a train station, a plane terminal, a hotel, and wow, boy, the mask would come down, and he would withdraw into his shell.
Well, Russell had little tests he did for people. He didn't trust very many people. We were sitting at a table one night in a restaurant, and he's having a martini, and there was one wonderful old sports writer, a guy named Murray Kramer. Russell didn't know him, and he's drinking his martini, and Kramer's sitting there in the booth, and he says, "Hey, Murray, taste this. This is a good martini. See if you like it." So Murray grabs it, goes, "Oh, well, that was terrific. I'll have another." See? From that moment on, Russell loved Murray Kramer till the day he died, because Russell knew that Kramer didn't look on him as a black man. If you would drink out of his glass, the same glass that he drank out of right away without even a thought, then you must be okay.
Despite such exceptions, a wall of white racist behavior isolated Bill Russell and other African Americans on the Celtics.
In some cities, we would hear racist crap walking through the stands. You'd have to walk through in some cities to get to the floor.
Marion, Indiana presented the Celtics with the key to the city, and then we tried to go across the street to a restaurant. We walk in, there are a lot of chairs there, tables empty, and we were met by someone that said, may we help you? And then, yes, we'd like to have something to eat. She said, I'm sorry, but everything's reserved here. And we said, all these chairs? Russell went back to his room, got the key to the city, went over to the mayor's house, knocked up, banged on his door, and gave him back his key, tell him what he could do with his key.
He wasn't appreciated here in Boston. The sports writers in Boston, some of them, believe it or not, did not vote for him to be the MVP of an all-star game because they wanted to give it to Jerry Lucas, who was a white guy. And I heard them say that.
Bill Russell was put in his place by the white man who cheered him on nights when he played basketball, and then treated as just another Negro when he wasn't in uniform. Bill Russell has never had a deferential day in his adult life, and he was not about to change anything about himself in order to placate the citizens of Boston.
We benefited from that anger and that intensity because the game would start and everyone with another shirt was whitey and he'd do it to them.
Bill Russell once stated, you played 2 blacks at home, 3 on the road, and 5 when you got behind.
Russell responded to Northern racism in the same way he had been taught back in Louisiana. He moved his family to Reading, Massachusetts, a predominantly white suburb of Boston.
Why did Russell live in Reading? Because he was a black man and he was going to take black people to Reading and show them that black people could live in Reading, just like ordinary people.
The town threw a big party for him. And he got up and spoke, and he said, "This is where I want to spend the rest of my life." And he started to cry. He went to buy a new house. They started circulating petitions against him in the neighborhood.
When he finally did get a home, they broke in and wrote all sorts of racial slurs on the walls.
Someone smashed all of his trophies. They defecated in my parents' bed.
Robbed his house and left terrible signs there about the fact they didn't want a black family living in Reading.
Every time my dad would go out of town, the raccoons would come and knock over the garbage. And my dad talked to the police and tried to have something done about it. And they said, well, you know, we're not animal control. We can't control the raccoons. And so once my dad applied for a gun permit, the raccoons never came back.
He felt betrayed. He wore his heart on his sleeve for certain incidents, but he'd never show the people that again.
I think that he was in hell in Boston, to the point that Russell said, I didn't play for Boston, I played for the Celtics.
We could have done more to ease his pain and make him feel more comfortable. I should have been much more sensitive to Russell's anguish in those days. We talk...
Bill Russell was the first black athlete in Boston of any prominence. And Bob Cousy was getting all the headlines. So Red became Bill Russell's John the Baptist. Red became the spreader of the gospel.
Red was very, very conscious of the racial issue. On a particular sequence, Cousy's hurt. And they go out on the road, and they all picked it up, said, boy, Cousy's here, we got to do it. And they played 4 or 5, and they won, all of them.
We came back, we go into Boston, the airport, and I pick up a paper, will Cousy play tonight? Boy, what a slap in the face that was.
Not, Celtics finished great road trip, Russell sensational. So Red said to them, listen, Russell is the reason.
It was mutual admiration and arrogance. But with these two people, Red and Russell, it was arrogance with intelligence.
They realized they needed one another. And Russell realized that he was in a perfect situation for him to play basketball, that Red would let him play the game that he wanted to play.
Red knew Russell was going to give you 48 minutes in the court. He was going to absolutely kill himself to win because he wanted to win so much. And therefore, he wasn't going to make great demands on Russell at practice.
He didn't like the practice. Once he'd say to me, can I miss practice tomorrow? I said, why? He said, I'm tired. I said, that's good, don't come.
During practice, Russell was sitting in the stands reading the newspaper. We're just running up and down the court. And Sam Jones is just, I don't understand why Russell still have to practice. So Red called everybody together. He said, I want to tell you guys something. Listen to me very careful. There's 2 sets of rules in this team. One for you guys and one for Bill Russell.
On the way to guiding the Celtics to the 1966 championship in his last season as head coach, Auerbach kept Boston in suspense as to who would be his successor. After the first game of the NBA Finals, Auerbach showed the basketball world how much he valued his star. 19 years after baseball's color barrier was broken, he named Russell the first black head coach of a major American professional sport.
Brad, any final words of advice to the new coach?
Win! At this stage of his career, who can better motivate Bill Russell than Bill Russell?
Bill Russell said about Red Auerbach, he's my friend. And he said, I don't have a whole lot of friends, but he's one of my friends.
The only guy he'll do anything for is Red, and God love him for that. If Red says, I need you here tomorrow, he'll be there.
We were just digging ourselves deeper.
First time I sat down with Russell, he said, all sport is a mixture of art and war. If it was all war, it wouldn't have any beauty and it wouldn't have the attraction. If it was all art, it wouldn't have any competition and it'd be in a museum. And he said, the reason it's hard for people to understand my fascination with sports is that the way sports is covered is not a mixture of arts and war, it's just bums and heroes. My relationship with Wilt was more about art and war and not about who's the bum and who's the hero.
I think in the long run, I'll be able to handle myself man-to-man with almost anyone in the league.
Wilt Chamberlain could not be guarded, could not be defended, he could not be thwarted. He was the greatest physical specimen that anybody has ever seen on a basketball court.
The first time we played Wilt destroyed Bill Russell. Put enough fear in Bill Russell's heart that Russell refocused and refocused and refocused every time we played them. So you got the extreme best out of Russell.
Their battles constituted a chapter in the legend of the NBA. Even though Wilt Chamberlain averaged 15 more points in his career, Russell had the edge where it counted. In 8 playoffs, Wilt's team won only once. And in 143 games head-on, Russell won 86-57.
Bill Russell had his number. Every Sunday, it seemed to me, Bill Russell walking off the court winning. Wilt Chamberlain, Goliath, walking off the court losing.
And this guy was 5 or 6 inches bigger than Russell, was 70 pounds, heavier than Russell. The only difference between the two of them was the fire in the belly.
In sports, they always say that will overcomes skill. And I think that when you have that kind of clash of titans, it's the will and the mind of Russell that will always dominate. He wanted it more.
But it wasn't a matter of Wilt versus Russell with Bill. He would let Wilt score 50 if we won. The thing that was most important to him was, championships, rings, and winning.
When Chamberlain got $100,000, the first $100,000 contract, Red immediately re-signed Russell for $101, just to show that he was a better player than Chamberlain.
Despite the rivalry, Russell and Chamberlain were friends.
When the Celtics would come to town, a lot of people don't realize that Wilt would invite Russell to his house for dinner. And then they'd go to the arena and Russell would try to tear his head off.
My father, if he was in Philadelphia, would often stay with Wilt, and Mrs. Chamberlain, if my dad needed to take a nap, well, go sleep in Wilt's room.
When Wilt came to Boston, we'd eat at Russell's house and go to the game together. We'd fight each other tooth and nail, but after the game, we're friends.
Their bond was tested in Game 7 of the 1969 finals. In Russell's last game as a player, Chamberlain failed to play the last 5 minutes.
Wilt's knee was really paining him, and he just wanted to quiet it down for a couple of minutes, and he came out and he put some ice on it. So when the knee quieted down a little bit, Dipper said to me, "Tell the man I'm ready to go back in." And Van Brennikoff said, "Tell him to hell with him. We don't need him."
Coach Van Brennikoff and Wilt did not get along at all. I think Van Brennikoff would have been thrilled to win a championship with Wilt sitting on the bench.
The Lakers lost 108-106, and in the aftermath, Chamberlain suffered a blow that would hurt long after his knee recovered.
Russell called him a faker. And Russell gave him a little needle after that about, you should have played as a 7th game.
Russell couldn't understand it, that in that moment, when all is on the line, you wouldn't go back in the game. It was a foreign idea to him.
The incident distanced them until they reconciled several years later. When Wilt died of heart failure in October of 1999, few felt the loss more profoundly than Russell.
I'm unspeakably injured by what happened the last few days. This was an integral part of my life and a good friend.
They loved each other. And actually, each one of them made each other. Part of their lives are so intertwined that there's no way you could separate one from the other.
After losing the Eastern Division Finals in his first season as player-coach, Bill Russell led a resurgence. The Celtics won back-to-back titles in 1968 and 69.
The Boston Celtics have done it again.
Then Russell decided he'd had enough.
Bill, this must have been a great win for you. Exactly.
The 35-year-old Russell retired with 11 NBA titles and career averages of 15 points and 23 rebounds.
By sheer force of will, Russell took his team to championships. That is the very definition of a winner. Willing to put his own goals behind those of the team. Whatever he had to do, he did it.
After accepting a sizable offer to become general manager and head coach of the Supersonics in 1973, Russell guided them into the playoffs 2 of 4 seasons. But the will that had driven Boston to greatness soon fell asleep in Seattle.
We had a team, a whole bunch of guys that probably didn't live up to his standard of, what basketball should have been played like.
He was so far beyond the players with his verbal approach. Russell was trying to get them to recognize these are steps you take to win a ball game, that they didn't quite understand what he was talking about.
After a stint in the broadcasting booth, Russell returned to the floor in 1987 as head coach of the Sacramento Kings.
He would sit next to me on the plane, and the first thing he said, "Why do you think I have you sitting here?" I was like, well, I guess I'm the new guy, and no one wants to sit next to the coach. He's like, no, that's not why. He said, these guys have been here for 4 years in Sacramento, haven't won any games. I don't want you to be mixed in with any losers.
I think Russell really wanted to find a life beyond basketball and felt that basketball was something of a drag and felt pigeonholed by being a coach. People would keep coming to him and saying, be a coach, be my general manager, I'll give you the world. And he would say, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I'm very good. I'm trying to do other things with my life, and everybody's sticking me back in basketball. But if you're going to pay me all that money and you're going to look me in the eye and say you understand when I say my heart's not really in it, I'll take your money.
He threw us out of practice because we were boring. He's like, you guys are boring. Get out of practice. I can't stay here. That day-to-day grind, I don't think that he was ready for it.
After a 17-41 start, Russell relinquished his role of coach and withdrew into the front office. By late 1989, Russell was gone from the Kings, fired as vice president of basketball operations. The edgy complexity of Russell's personality was publicly demonstrated in 1975 when he refused his induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Bill Russell did not want to go into the Hall of Fame because he had arrived at an independent conclusion that there should have been quite a few other black players enshrined before him, and his only conclusion was that ignorant whites, whether they're racist or not, had not seen fit to enshrine people whose clear contributions were obvious. Most athletes hunger very badly to be honored. Bill Russell said, do I need a plaque to remind me that I played on the greatest professional basketball team of all time, that I was a 5-time NBA MVP, that I won 11 championships? Do I need any of this to remind myself of who I am? Forget about it. And so Bill Russell said, you can go along and have your silly little Hall of Fame, but you can do it without me.
He's always been a private man and will always be a private man. He listens to a different voice. He listens to his own voice.
But you've always felt that perhaps autographs were a little foolish, didn't you? Yeah, I still think they're a waste of time.
Kids would come up to him and they'd say, Mr. Russell, I'd like to get an autograph. He'd say, son, I don't give autographs, but I'd be happy to shake your hand. He just really believed that you took him at the value as the man and that a handshake was a lot better than a signature.
Can I get your autograph?
I don't sign autographs, young man.
Well, how come?
I just don't believe in it. But for you, I got some old sweat socks out there.
When I was a kid, we came up to him, asked for his autograph, and he very politely explained to us why he did not sign. He shook hands with everyone and talked with all of us, which, let's face it, a lot of guys would rather sign and do none of the other. It was a great thrill.
He would spend 5 minutes telling the person why he wouldn't sign an autograph, when the easiest way out of the whole thing would have been to sign the autograph. The person gets 10 seconds of your time, you give him what he wants, and he goes. He would not sign an autograph for his teammates.
Heinsohn almost got in a fight with him in New York because, you know, Tommy felt embarrassed. He had family people there. Tommy's from Jersey. They're hovering around the locker room, and Tommy needs to get something signed because all the other teammates have signed it, and Russell won't do it.
Tom Sanders is taking a picture around or something, trying to get everybody on the team to sign it. Everybody signs it, hi, Satch, best, love being, all that, like a high school yearbook gets to Russell, and Russell won't sign it. Sanders says, I'm not some kid in the street, I'm your teammate. And Russell goes exactly the opposite direction. He says, Satch, you know me. You, of all people, shouldn't be presenting this to me.
I've seen him in restaurants when he would refuse an autograph for somebody and say, no, but I'd like to share a cup of coffee with you. And people react in one of two ways. They don't want to have a cup of coffee with him. They just want to get his autograph, so they break into tears, or they sit down and something magic happens. And it's that Bill Russell that's underappreciated.
Russell insisted there was no value in autographs, but if others were willing to pay, he was willing to sign. In 1992, he inked a $2 million 7-year contract with a collectibles firm.
My idea is that my dad's also no dummy when it comes to business, and I think, they're like, there's just so much money here. And so in that context, it's very much his job at that moment to do this task.
Autographs changed. Autographs became valuable. They weren't valuable at one point. And so I think you can almost say that professionally he will sign autographs, casually he won't. And I do think that it's difficult in some respects to resolve that, but I think it's fair.
In 1973, Russell's 16-year marriage to his wife Rose, with whom he had a daughter and 2 sons, ended in divorce. He then had a brief second marriage to a former Miss USA in the late 1970s.
One of the paradoxes in his life is that I think he values family above all else, but he's such a strong figure that in some ways it's hard to be in a family with somebody who is a celebrity and a giant. He feels so strongly for his family now, for his sons and his daughter. He feels that he owes his life to the family relations that he had when he was growing up with his father and his mother.
My father is a voracious reader. Reads a couple newspapers a day, always has magazines and books around. When I was in 6th grade, we were sitting there and eating breakfast, and my dad said, do you think you could read the paper before we have breakfast so we'd have something to talk about over breakfast? So we would talk about whether we should boycott grapes or about the latest crisis. He said to me, I don't know a lot about little girls. The only thing I know is that when you leave my house, you will go out into the world and you'll be able to take care of yourself.
The Mildred Gaddis Show remembers the late, great Bill Russell, who passed away 1 week ago today at age 89. Thank you all for hanging out with us this morning. I know you have many choices on a Sunday morning. An hour-long rebroadcast of this show will be on our sister stations, Praise Network, on Saturdays from 5 to 6 a.m. and 105.1 The Bounce on Sundays from 6 to 7 a.m. You can listen to the Mildred Gaddis Show podcast. Just text Mildred to the hotline number for the link to the podcast. Marcus D. Reed is the producer of the Mildred Gaddis Show. And as you head into this week, I encourage you to wake up with no regrets. Love the ones who treat you right and forgive the ones who don't. I'm Mildred Gaddis, and I'll see you on the radio.
Tickets on the 20th winning weekend
on KISS.